Could UCF be a dark horse in the Big 12 in 2024? We're going to go game by game, give you predictions for this team. And before we get to that, let's just talk about the team. So KJ Jefferson comes over from Arkansas. I think he's going to be a good fit in this offense. They've got weapons around him. This is a very talented team as far as the skill positions go. I mean, they're right there among the best in the Big 12. I think the offensive line is going to be a bit of a concern. I think that's the weakness of this team. And if they really struggle up front, it could be a pretty bad season. But if they can come together and be better than I expect on the offensive line, this team could potentially get to the Big 12 championship. I really think they have the talent everywhere else to maybe make a run. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think there's potential, again, if that offensive line plays really well. Defense should be pretty good. I don't think they're going to be great, but not bad. A cornerback position might be a little bit of a concern, but they should be pretty solid on defense, and they're just one of those typical Big 12 teams that's kind of in the mix. Maybe not at the top, but in that next tier where you could see a team like this potentially make a run. It happens all the time in the Big 12. There's so much parity in this league, and it's always so fun to watch. But Vegas, they've got the over-under on this team at 7.5. That seems like a pretty good number. I think that's very fair. We'll go game by game, and again, we're going to go a little bit quicker on these predictions as we get to these. We're in the home stretch here, the back half, second half of teams as we do these predictions. So we've already talked about a lot of these games. They should absolutely start 2-0, no doubt about it. New Hampshire, Sam Houston, they should win both of those games. So a 2-0 start. They play TCU next on the 14th. This should be a really, really good game. I think these teams are very even. I do have concerns again about that offensive line for UCF, but the balance on offense I think is going to help them. I think TCU is going to be a little bit better throwing the ball than they are running the ball, and so maybe the balance on the offensive side for UCF is enough to where they can take advantage of the TCU defense a little bit more. I mean, this one's really a toss-up, and it almost came down to me just picking home field advantage, but like I've said, trying not to do that as much this year. So just going to go with the gut here and say that UCF goes on the road and they pull off a win over TCU. All right, they get a bye week before playing Colorado. This should be an exciting game. A lot of points in this one, a lot of offense. Colorado does have a pretty strong defensive line, especially their starters, which could cause some problems for UCF. You look at Colorado, I think they'll be better early in the season because depth is going to be an issue for them. But early on, I think they'll play well, kind of like they did last year. And that could be the difference in this game. So I'm going to say UCF loses to Colorado. Again, normally I would just kind of maybe not put as much thought into these games and just say, well, they're playing TCU on the road, that's a loss. Playing Colorado at home, it's a win. But that's not the way it always works. So we're going to say they actually win on the road and lose at home. And then they go on the road to play Florida the next week on October 5th. Gators, it's their schedule. We know about the schedule. It's so tough. And I've said this before, when you have a schedule that tough, when you've got a chance to get a win, you've got to take advantage of it. And I think Florida's going to. I think they are a little bit better overall as far as talent, but it's not by much. And I think this one, actually, the home field advantage will be the difference. It's an in-state matchup. The crowd should be fired up, and I think that crowd will be the difference. Florida beats UCF. They got Cincinnati the next week, October 12th at home. Cincinnati is going to have a pretty good offense, but a terrible defense. Probably the worst defense in the Big 12, maybe the worst defense in the Power 4. UCF should take advantage of that. They will roll. Now, Cincinnati does have a decent defensive line, so if they're, you could see how all of these games, really, things can happen to where they could go the other way when you look at all these different individual matchups, but I just still think UCF is going to be too good. So going to UCF there. Iowa State the next week on the road in October 19th. Going to be a tough, hard-fought game here. We know Iowa State's a physical team. I think UCF, though, is still a little bit better than them, and I think they're good enough. KJ Jefferson is a veteran quarterback. I think he's able to go on the road and get this win for UCF. And they'll play BYU on the 26th. UCF, a much better team here. I'm not high on BYU. I've talked about that. I think UCF wins this one fairly easily. I don't know that they blow anyone out in the Big 12. I don't think they're going to be that good. But you look at games against Cincinnati and BYU, those are games where they should win, in my opinion, by at least a couple of touchdowns. So 14, 17, 21, something like that. I think they'll win those games. So that gets them to 6-2. Arizona next on the 2nd of November. Another game that I think we'll see a lot of points in. This is going to be a huge game. If they're 6-2 at this point, only one loss in the Big 12, they've got some momentum. The crowd should really show up in this one. It's a pretty tough place to play. I think UCF is going to ride the momentum and beat Arizona. A big upset there to get to 7-2. But in typical Gus Malzahn fashion, I think they lose the next week. Arizona State's going to have a pretty good defensive line, good run game. I think they're really underrated. I don't think they're going to be a great team or anything, but they're not a team that you can just show up and beat if you're a team like UCF. They got to go out west all the way to Arizona. There's no bye week before this game. That's a long ways to go. I think Arizona State pulls off the upset here. Then they go back to Florida, get a bye week, and go up to West Virginia. A West Virginia team is going to be physical, going to run the football, going to be better at the line of scrimmage. I've got to go with the Mountaineers. And then same thing with Utah, just a team that's better at the line of scrimmage, a more physical team. Maybe the speed of UCF can win the day in that matchup, but my gut tells me Utah takes this one, and UCF finishes 7-5. So a decent season. I think 8-4 is definitely on the table. It's just hard for me with this schedule to see them doing much better than that. And again, you could see them losing to, say, Iowa State or TCU on the road and even slipping to 6-6. So 7-5, my prediction. What's your prediction for UCF? Let me know down in the comments below.